Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 4 Absolute Doom has come to an end, and with it comes the end of Fortnitemares 2024 and Chapter 5 as a whole. But was our war against Dr. Doom all it was cracked up to be? And were the new collaborations able to restore people's faith in Fortnitemares after the last few years seemed to turn people away? When this season first started, I think that it hit the ground running and did a pretty good job of getting people excited to play in a full Marvel season again. We were first warned about the Wanderer back at the very end of Season 2, and yes, Dr. Doom was the most obvious choice as to who this character was going to be. I think that they handled it pretty well. And Doom certainly left a big impression when one of the first things you notice about the new map for this season was that it's covered in remnants of heroes and villains that had opposed Doom and had all fallen. From Galactus's busted helmet out in the ocean, to the fact that the throne in Castle Doom is made of the remains of the Thing, this was a pretty dark way to start the season. Doom ended up being the secret skin of this season's Battle Pass, which was filled with characters that actually did have relevance to the story. Here we get yet another version of Jones as a Battle Pass skin, even after we had gotten one in the first season of this chapter. They've really been showing a lot of love to old Jonesy. Not only that, but this Battle Pass also had a new version of Peely themed after Wolverine to go alongside Jones's Captain America style. I actually really like that we got new Jonesy and Peely skins in this Battle Pass together. It was really nice. Joining them and a new non-Battle Pass version of Hope would be Gwenpool, War Machine, and Shuri. Meanwhile, the remaining two Battle Pass skins, Mysterio and Emma Frost, were aligned with Doom and served as bosses on the island that you could take down and earn medallions from. A clever idea here was that they decided not to have Dr. Doom himself be the guardian of Castle Doom. It was instead a Doombot, which had all the powers of Dr. Doom from the first time he was on the island. This would allow the real Doom time to build better armor so that he could finish absorbing all of the powers of Pandora's box that he wasn't able to when he first opened it. And this is basically the story of the season. Jones and Hope will lead a group of warriors to take down Doom's forces in hopes of keeping the island from becoming Latveria. What about the gameplay though? How was everything feeling, especially after we had just gotten off a season where everything was focused on automobiles? Personally, I really liked most of the Marvel weapons. I know some of them were overpowered and those got tweaked as time went on, but I think that they make the season stand out. The only one I think I could have done without was War Machine's hovering pack. I just don't think that one was really mobile enough, especially after the later collab that came with Iron Man. Yeah, to have full flight over just hovering a little bit, that was a major improvement. Speaking of old Tony Stark, I'm actually kind of glad that they worked him into this story too, because not only was Doom on the island at one point before, but so was Tony, and they were both bosses on the map during that Chapter 2 season. It does bother me a little bit that there's no mention of Tony and Doom being on the island at the same time before, but Jonesy does acknowledge that Tony himself was, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they tried to build anything off of that original Galactus season. All that said, once Iron Man actually does come back to the island, we do get new versions of Iron Man's old weapons combined into one, and the hover boots that I mentioned earlier, giving us full flight in a way that I think even exceeds what the Icarus wings had done during the Gods season. Not only that, but if you have both the Iron Man gauntlets and Iron Man boots, then while you're flying around in the air, you can actually shoot a unibeam from the sky. Perhaps the Icarus wings really did show Epic that people like the idea of being able to stay airborne for a while in Fortnite. So, who knows? Flight may be a recurring ability going forward as we head towards Chapter 6. Now, one part of the story is actually about how Hope is starting to really doubt her ability to handle this new threat from Doom. The Oracle seems to believe in her, Jonesy believes in her, but she doesn't believe in herself. And just as she's starting to maybe come around to the idea that maybe she can do this, we get an energy signal reading warning us that the actual real Doom is on his way to the island. This was to set up an in-game live event which turned out to be a gigantic boss battle against Doom in Battle Royale. Now, I don't think that a boss battle like this is a first for Fortnite. I think they did the same thing with the Storm King, but that happened at a point where I hadn't started playing the game yet, so this was a new experience for me. It took almost an hour for us to bring Doom down and get him warped back to where he came from, leaving only his mask in the middle of a wasteland. Now, while I had fun doing the event, at the end of it, it did feel kind of strangely rushed. It's like I can't figure out why we're facing the big bad of the season this soon. Initially, I remember thinking, well, maybe he'll come back. Fortnitemares is right around the corner, and they're already teasing Mephisto coming to the game for the event. And we know that Mephisto and Doom have a deep history with each other. Weirder still was the fact that if you went and talked to NPCs after this event, they would give you dialogue from before the event, as if it had never happened, as if Doom was still on his way. It just seemed like a major oversight that these characters didn't have anything new to say, with our main villain being taken out halfway through the season. But because in the event Doom destroyed Tony Stark's rift beacons and now they're scattered across the island and there are pumpkins growing around them now, I think I could see what they were doing. It seems like the game plan from Epic this season was to get the Doom story out of the way so that they could fully focus on Fortnitemares as a standalone thing. Last year, Fortnitemares was actually tied into the story and the transformation of Kato Thorn from just this time-traveling vampire guy to a vampire beast. The problem with that is that transformation for that character was basically all you got for Fortnitemares last year, maybe except for a few of the traditional weapons that we always get. There weren't even that many decorations out on the map. That's how bare bones the 2023 Fortnitemares really was. But it really feels like they were trying to redeem themselves after last year's event, because there are pumpkins and scary decorations and even a completely swapped out POI for this thing. Fortnitemares brought us 2 new bosses, including Billy the Puppet from the Saw franchise, and Mephisto did actually show up, just not exactly the way people expected, and in a far less confrontational capacity than I would have preferred. Since the Gods and Mortals season, Hades has abandoned his post as the king of the underworld, leaving it completely open for anybody to just waltz in and seize control over. Mephisto rules over hell in the Marvel universe, so it makes perfect sense that he would find the underworld to be a nice substitute home. The disappointing part, though, is you can't fight him. He sits on his throne and you make deals with him, which is accurate to his character, but just not as exciting. Of course, there were people who managed to find a way to get around his unbreakable shield and actually kill him, but nothing interesting happened when they did. And when he took over, Mephisto did a little bit of redecorating, changing all of the otherworldly water that surrounds and runs through the underworld from green to red. So now in this game that we're trying to keep kid-friendly for kids because they want to do a big partnership with Disney, it looks like you're swimming through a river of blood. Speaking of Disney, if a Marvel-themed season wasn't enough of the mouse for you, this is where we got our first collabs from Pixar with 3 characters from The Incredibles and our first set of Disney villains. Mr. Incredible, Mrs. Incredible, aka Elastigirl, Frozone, Captain Hook, Cruella de Vil, and Maleficent. They're all in Fortnite now. This is all while you can still play a Saw-based game with Jigsaw to kill other players. That's not to even mention the Leatherface collab where you can run around to chop people up with a chainsaw. As you can see, a whole lot of stuff happened this season. But was any of it any good? I think the season started off strong with all the stuff with Doom and the preparation for having Hope have to learn how to trust in herself and her own instincts to take this guy down. That was done pretty well. Where it kind of fell apart was the fact that Doom showed up for the final battle mid-season. And I kind of expected Hope to die in this season or sacrifice herself, or maybe Jonesy would be the one to do it. And then for Fortnitemares, everybody would find some kind of a way to bring them back before the season ended. Maybe like some big showdown in the afterlife where if it's Hope having sacrificed herself to take down Doom, then they'll both be resurrected for one final confrontation at the end. Instead, we got a big boss battle with everyone in the world contributing, and while I liked that, it just seems like maybe not the strongest type of event. I don't know. I still liked it for what it was and had a good time playing it. It just really felt like a long time after a while. And though I expected Fortnitemares to be tied to the Absolute Doom story, I am kind of glad that it wasn't. Ditching the Doom storyline mid-season does make Fortnitemares feel a little less important, but it does make it feel more like traditional Fortnitemares. Now, I think they could have maybe found a way to make this work to where the storyline didn't have to be finished mid-season, and they could still do a Fortnitemares without incorporating it into the story, because I don't remember Fortnitemares 2022 having anything to do with the lead up to the Chrome. But overall, I think this Fortnitemares was definitely a step up, at least from the previous two. You might remember that Chapter 3's Fortnitemares was centered around these wolf claws that would allow you to sniff out nearby opponents. But those got taken out of the game fairly quickly, and half of Fortnitemares went by without them. So the key weapon from that event was absent from most of it. That's definitely one reason why I think people aren't so fond of that one. And touching back on Chapter 4's event, other than the fact that the main villain of the season was a vampire and he could transform, that's all we had. Essentially, if not for the pumpkin launchers and witch brooms, there would have not been a Fortnitemares last year. So I like both parts of this season, the Doom stuff and Fortnitemares, but I don't think the Doom stuff flows well into the Fortnitemares stuff. Maybe I'm just not sure how to feel about this, because I enjoyed the invasion of the Cube Queen being a part of Fortnitemares in that season, and I at least understood what they were trying to go with by having Kato Thorn and Eclipse and the Blood Moon being tied to Fortnitemares last year too. I know some folks were thinking that this would be where Marvel Zombies would kick in, and we would potentially see Doom return for a second round, but obviously that's not what we got. Instead, we got Mephisto just sort of chilling in the underworld, offering to buy pieces of our soul in exchange for better quality weapons. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy our battles with Dr. Doom and his minions? And did maybe Fortnitemares redeem itself in your eyes? Is there anything about this season that you would have personally preferred to have changed? Thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. You can also donate to the channel over on Ko-fi and become a member of the channel to get some perks. Now, I'm gonna go make sure that Agent Peely's suit still fits him, because a banana's gotta look his best if we're going back to Chapter 2.